Since the birth of reality itself, the high heavens and the burning hells have waged an endless war for anything of value within the realms of order and chaos.
Take heed and bear witness to the truths that lie herein, for they are the last legacy of the Horadrim. There is a war that rages on even now, beyond the fields that we know, between the utopian kingdoms of the high heavens and the chaotic pits of the burning hells. This war is known as the Great Conflict, and it has raged and burned longer than any of the stars in the sky. Neither side ever gained sway for long, as the forces of light and darkness constantly vie for control over all creation.
The war was most commonly fought in the realm of Pandemonium, as both sides fought for the control of the Worldstone. It is said that whoever controlled the Worldstone had the ability to shape reality and create life and worlds almost without restriction. Angels used the stone to create worlds of perfect order in line with their ideals. Demons used it to create engines of annihilation and worlds of destruction, terror, and hatred. However, none of the worlds, regardless of their maker, ever flourished and were doomed to wither and die due to war. At times, the war would reach heaven and hell itself. The diamond gates of the high heavens were assailed at least 5 times, but the gates themselves were never breached. Likewise, angels assaulted hell. One such assault was made against Mephisto himself in his own realm, and another against the Hellforge himself, where Israel was lost. But while the great conflict burned hotter and longer than any of the stars in the sky, neither side could gain dominion over the other for too long. Both factions sought some way to turn the tides of the war to their favor.
Led by the Angiras Council, their unity made them an indomitable force for light and righteousness. Steadfast, Oriel, Archangel of Hope. Malthael, Archangel of Wisdom. Ethereal, Archangel of Fate. Tyrael, Archangel of Justice. And Imperious, the Archangel of Valor.
Archangel Inarius, who formerly served as an advisor to the Angiras Council, came to the conclusion that the conflict was unjust and that his part in it had to come to an end. He tried to make his superior Tyrael see his point of view, but the Archangel would not be swayed. Inarius reflected that he could not be unique, that there had to be angels and demons who also sought escape from the never-ending war fate. He resolved to find these individuals and lead them to a new beginning in their own hands. During a battle, Inarius led his kin on a charge from an outpost of the Pandemonium fortress. He was struck down, wounded, and marooned. When he came to, he awoke in chains. He ranted on about his desires to be free of the great conflict, and in turn his captor freed him. She gave him her name, Lilith, daughter of Mephisto, and told the angel that they would meet again. Inarius was instantly captivated by her. Lilith had suffered from her father's hatred, and like Inarius, had long awaited an opportunity to rebel against their kindred. The two joined forces and even came to fall in love. Each pledged himself to the other and vowed to escape the eternal conflict. They were able to gather like-minded followers. Together, they defect from heaven and hell and search for another place to live. Either through strength of arms or misdirection, Inarius and his renegades managed to gain access to the Worldstone, located deep within the Pandemonium fortress. They used its power to conceal it from the angels and demons still fighting in the eternal conflict, and subsequently shifted it into a pocket dimension. Inarius shaped Mount Arreat as kind of protective shell around the Worldstone. From there, the rest of the world would be formed, a world he named Sanctuary. As the angels and demons worked the Worldstone to form the new world, Inarius secretly fooled all the other renegades and tied the Worldstone's power to himself. This enhanced his powers unimaginably and made him the strongest being on Sanctuary and the de facto ruler. Inarius and Lilith had done the impossible by banding angels and demons together and creating a world in which they could coexist. Yet, as he saw Lilith sleeping by his side, fear began to grip Inarius, and he believed he would pay for his sins. While Sanctuary was at peace for now, he knew his kin would come for him eventually. Eventually, Lilith and Inarius mated and created offspring. They were the first, but not the last, and soon an entire race had taken form, the Nephalem. Dissension rippled through the angels and demons of Sanctuary, for not only did this new species have power that surpassed that of angel or demon, but a union of angels and demons would be deemed the ultimate blasphemy by the great evils and Angerus Council. The defectors were convinced that they would be destroyed if Sanctuary came to be discovered. Some argued for the destruction of the Nephalem, others believed they could be spared. Troubled by the dissension, Inarius called for a period of reflection to consider the matter in solitude. Inarius came to the conclusion that the Nephalem were abominations and declared that they be exterminated. Lilith, driven into a mad frenzy by the threat of her children's extinction, began slaughtering her fellow renegades, both angel and demon alike, leaving Inarius to discover the carnage she had wrought. Bringing his former lover to heel, Inarius found himself unable to kill her. He had promised that he would never strike her down or let another do it, and the promise still held true, and instead he banished her into the void. Left alone with no one but himself and a race of abominations, Inarius attuned to a Worldstone to cause the powers of the Nephalem to diminish over time. He then disappeared, though writings of the past suggested that he still walked among men in a form resembling that of his children. He watched as successive Nephalem generations diminished and became humans, watching as human civilization spread over Sanctuary. It is heavily suggested by some accounts that he came to favor mortals, for unlike the Nephalem, he did not see humans as a threat. For a while, all seemed right, but eventually both sides of the conflict were bound to take notice of Sanctuary. It was the Burning Hells which first discovered the realm, because of the reckless actions of Harash, a legendary magician of the Vizirai clan. They took notice of the mortal inhabitants of Sanctuary and realized its strategic value. Control over Sanctuary and its mortal population could gain the decisive advantage in the great conflict. In order not to alert the high heavens, the forces of hell opted for the subtle approach. The prime evil Mephisto sent his son, Lucian, to the realm, where he established a cult, the Triune. This cult would win over humanity to its side, gradually turning them over to the side of evil. However, Inarius noticed the intrusion and created a counter-sect, the Cathedral of Light, that preached the teachings of the light. And so the great game had begun, a secret war of subterfuge and manipulations, with humanity as its grand prize. The battle continued over the next decade, and the status quo between the two bodies was maintained, as agents of both religions carried their messages to the people, building bases of power, constructing monuments, and winning the absolute loyalty of faithful supplicants. However, at the war's end, 3,000 years before the darkening of Tristram, the precious balance between the Triune and the Cathedral dissolved due to the return of Lilith, who once again sought to bring the power of the Nephalem under her control. To this end, she weakened the dampening effect of the Worldstone and manipulated a simple farmer, Oleksiy, into removing the main obstacles, the Triune and the Cathedral. Oleksiy led a band of followers called the erupts against them. Olesiy's followers also had access to their nephalem potential, allowed for by Olesiy's alteration of the Worldstone's attunement, allowing the erupts' powers to grow. Eventually, Inarius was dragged into the conflict. The tyrant ruler of Sanctuary, he had considered himself above Oleksiy and refused to come into direct contact with him. Because of that belief, he sent his trusted assistant Gamuel to assassinate Oleksiy. The plot failed, and Inarius resorted to even more desperate measures, a pact with Diablo himself. At this point, the humans' powers had grown immensely, and a confrontation was imminent. Initially, Inarius did not view Oleksiy as much of a threat, but as his efforts to stop the human continued to fail, Inarius became more and more desperate. At this time, Inarius was approached by Diablo, and the Prime Evil offered him a pact. Together, the two sought to defeat Oleksiy and his erupts. At the same time, Tyrell discovered Sanctuary, and soon thereafter High Heavens was notified of the existence of this world.
All praises to Diablo, Lord of Terror and survivor of the Dark Exile. When he awakened from his long slumber, my lord and master spoke to me of secrets that few mortals know. He told me the kingdoms of the high heavens and the pits of the burning hells engage in an eternal war. He revealed the powers that have brought this discord to the realms of man. My lord has named the battle for this world and all who exist here the Sin War.
The High Heavens viewed Sanctuary and its inhabitants as an abomination to existence, and acted accordingly, sending the armies directly to Sanctuary. Drag-Ul, the guardian of Sanctuary, uses immense power to shield Sanctuary's location from the angels, but he could not hold it forever. Oleksiy and Inarius also clashed, and that battle is without doubt the fiercest battle that has ever taken place on the face of Sanctuary, and likely ever will. Both wielded the strength of gods, and continually changed the landscape surrounding them as they battled. As they fought, a tear appeared in the sky as the hosts of angels finally reached and invaded Sanctuary. Soon after, Oleksiy's entire body infused with energy. He acquired a higher understanding of Sanctuary itself and easily broke the bond between Inarius and the Worldstone. Inarius, without the immense amount of power to draw upon, was easily defeated by Oleksiy and trapped in a prison until the Angiris Council further decided his fate. Soon after the angels reached Sanctuary, Tyrell found Oleksiy and shackled him. Demons of the burning hells, determined not to let the angels destroy what they sought to exploit, erupted onto the landscape and a three-way battle commenced. The angels battling on one side, the demons on the other, and the erupts stuck in the middle. Oleksiy, still shackled, was forced to watch his people as they fought against both angel and demon. Overcome with emotion, he finally broke free of Tyrell's bonds and demanded the armies to stop. Surprisingly, they all became frozen in time. Oleksiy then cleared the angels and demons from his world. He began changing the landscape back to how it was before all the destruction had taken place. As he did so, his powers refused to cooperate and instead destroyed the environment where he was trying to fix it. He realized the only thing he could do was to draw the destruction onto himself, and so with all his might he did so. Finally, after taking in all the destruction that Sanctuary had suffered, Drag-Ul guided him to the void to release it. After the battle, a gathering was held between the Anger's council and Mephisto. Sanctuary was all but destroyed, but all hope was not lost. Some, like Rathma, the first necromancer and son of Inarius and Lilith, pleaded with heaven to spare Sanctuary. A vote was held between the angels. Imperius and Malthael voted against Sanctuary's existence, and Auriel argued strongly for it. The deciding fifth vote was laid by Tyrell, who initially seemed to show little love for humanity, but was ultimately moved by Odyssean's sacrifice. Together with Mephisto, a deal was made between heaven and hell. Sanctuary was to live on its own, with no war brought here by heaven or hell. Humanity would choose for themselves what to do. In return for agreeing this, Mephisto obtained custody of Inarius and took him to the burning hells. Mephisto sought Inarius because it was him and his daughter Lilith that was responsible for the creation of Sanctuary and the Nephalem. None were to remember the events of the war, so that humanity could choose between light and dark from an unbiased perspective. None would know of the existence of demons, angels, or Nephalem. Only the original Nephalem, which were so few that they would pass on soon anyway. Odyssean's brother, the necromancer Mendel, remained conscious of the events in history. This, the reset world, is the past from which the games take place. The first version, with Odyssean, isn't recorded in history, but is known by a few humans as well as angels and demons naturally. And that concludes the first part of my in-depth Diablo story series. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, and I'll see you in the next parts. I'll be back.